chained me to the bench. So I sat there for about an hour and a half asking questions while the arresting officer typed away a report. Was released after, as I said, about, let's say, an hour, hour and a half at the most, and told that I had to appear the next afternoon at the village court. I did. Well, let me back up a little bit. As soon as I got home, I typed up a little synopsis of what happened to me and sent it out to a few friends of mine, who then posted it on a broader mailing list, Peace and Justice, Orange County Peace and Justice mailing list. And I was shocked at how many positive responses I got, and emails of support. Hey, when's the case? We'll be there. And I said, great. You know, I really thought nothing was going to come of it. I thought for sure it would just be dismissed. And I said, look, if you want to come, but don't expect any high courtroom drama here. I mean, this is kind of it would look to me like a silly arrest, and I thought that the judge would immediately see it and dismiss it, without any consequence whatsoever to me. Just say, no, the case dismissed. This is nonsense. That's what I thought. And actually, what happened was fairly close to that, almost. The judge, I think, was a little bit embarrassed when he read the horribly written, by the way, deposition of the police officer that was probably intelligible. I mean, I couldn't believe it, but that's a note to the side.
Did you bring a copy of that with you?
No, I wish I did. I wish I did. You get a kick out of it. It's almost like, did you ever try to do the cryptoquip in the newspaper? It was that the spelling was about like that. This guy has his own language and his own alphabet, but the judge struggled and made some sense out of it and said, well, I'll give you some LSD, and I thought, oh, that sounds cool. I said, LSD? He goes, no, ACD. What's that? He said, well, that means that you promise you won't get into any more trouble like this for 6 months, and the case will be dismissed. I said, well, you mean like First Amendment rights are suspended for 6 months? I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, that's what this is. It's an action contemplating dismissal. I said, no, I don't want that. I said, I just want total exoneration. I want you to recognize the fact that I don't need a permit. And he said, well, then what? He said, a court date. So he set one for the 14th of October. And I tell you, I've just been flooded with inquiries about, what's going on, and, people tell me they're going to show up in the court to support me, and it's just been really heartening to just see that people made a big deal out of it. I think the big deal is there was a picture story on page 3 the next day in the Times Herald Record, and that's what I think really triggered it, because otherwise I just would have been a tree falling in a forest with no one hearing it, I guess. So I'm kind of grateful that it caught the interest of the local press, and so some people I hope are alerted to some potentially serious incursions into our First Amendment. I'm not sure how serious they are. But it is certainly, you have to be vigilant and do your best to nip these things in the bud. So we'll find out on the 14th whether I go to Gitmo or, what happens.
Hopefully it doesn't go that
yeah,
far.
but there was no waterboarding down at the Goshen Station House. They were actually, fairly simple.
Okay. And how was your demeanor with the patrolman?
Oh, it was actually, it ended up okay.
Were you civil?
Yeah, I thought so. I even tried schmoozing a little bit, thinking that it might get me a link or two looser handcuff fitting there. We talked about the Yankee game and all kinds of other, guy stuff to try to let them see that I'm not a terrorist in disguise. I'm not here to, bring down the courtroom or burn any buildings. And, just one of you guys that, there were just 300 anti-Obama protesters walking across a bridge to Matamoros, I think, a few days before that, not more than 30 miles from here. So I figured, well, if 300 of them could, block traffic and make a ruckus on a bridge, then how could one guy on a street corner be any kind of a problem?
Mm-hmm.
So I engaged them a little bit in political conversation, but I tried to avoid that. And we just chatted, and my impression was that the officers were a little bit embarrassed by what they did, and I really think there was some regret. But they kind of, once you get started, it's momentum. They can't embarrass themselves by stopping either. So the officer, Rob, I believe his name was, the arresting officer, reassured me that there'll probably be very little long-lasting consequence to this, and he even kind of gave me a foreshadowing of what was going to happen. He said the judge will probably tell you if you're good for 6 months, we'll let this go. Mm-hmm. So I think I think that the officer, and everyone else was hoping that I would take that just to sort of get this thing in the rearview mirror as quick as possible, but it didn't look very pretty. Mm-hmm. I think that it would have been a disservice to myself and to what I believe in, to just let it go without challenging the legitimacy, the constitutionality of the law itself, and accepting that ACD would have not given me that opportunity, so I didn't accept it. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing this kind of thing for a long time, and mostly it's just myself acting independently. I join groups now and then, and I'll certainly join picket lines, and I'll join a line of protesters whose cause I agree with. But I've kind of always been a lone wolf, more comfortable just going out there doing my own independent speech. And I have to say I've been troubled of late by a lot of things that have happened when I try to do this. Not too many months before that, I guess it was sometime around July 4th when those tea parties were taking place all over. Mm-hmm. I printed up a similar size placard, and again, very crude and homemade, that said, tax the rich 90% on one side, and on the other side, bigger, better government. And I went right to those tea party lines, and I was the only guy opposed to them, in the line. And I held up my sign, my banner, and I flip it over, and it really, they got upset, the Tea Party people, because I believe I had far more positive reactions from the passing motorists than they did, and there were a lot of them. But what troubled me about it was there was just a little too much bullying from that side. There were the guys would come up to me and they wouldn't challenge me directly to any kind of physical fight, but they were verging on fighting words. Mm-hmm. Commie this, what the hell, how come you hate America, standing a few inches away, just being real provocative. But okay, that's other impassioned people confronting someone else who they see as impassioned. That was, that was not the same thing as a cop coming over and telling you to move. But later that night, after having that experience with the crowd, that was up in front of Kingston Mall, I think. There was a big rally, a big Tea Party rally over here at the Renegade Stadium. So I took my sign there, it was a full house, and I walked up and down the aisles of that stadium with this sign, man, they didn't like it. Who they didn't like? One guy comes and grabs my sign and he says, what's that sign say? And I said, look, first let me tell you what I'm saying. I'm saying let go of my sign. Then after you hear what I'll say, we'll talk about what my sign says. Let go of my sign. So he told me, I was in, I fought for your freedom. I did, he was a vet, I said, well, if you fought for my freedom, then let me exercise it. Okay. He had trouble, reacting to that other than to let go of my sign. But, I realized this isn't so cool because I'm on private